Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. On this installment of Young Martin's Reels, we're going to be working on this Shimano Bantam Magnumlite BSM-1551B bait casting reel. The first thing we're going to do is remove the handle. And then remove the nut from the handle. By the way, this nut is reverse threaded from what most threads are, so you will take it off in the clockwise direction instead of the anti-clockwise direction. Okay, with that off, you'd think you'd be able to remove the handle, but you can't. You still have a C-clip. This C-clip right here, we've got to remove it. So we're going to take that off next. I use a little screwdriver. A lot of people like to use their fingers. And my fingers are kind of big, so I go in with the C-clip or with a screwdriver, pull it over, and off it comes. Under the C-clip is a small washer or shim. Now with that off, the handle will come off. With that off, you have a tensioner. Now sometimes, like this one, the tensioner gets a little over tightened by somebody, and I happen to know who did this, and I won't speak any names. And what you can do to return a little bit of tension to it again is slightly bend the tabs down just a little bit. What that does, it creates tension against the star washer here, so that with vibration it doesn't loosen up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove that now by spinning it. With that removed, go ahead and tip it down. We've got a washer that comes off. The rest of it's going to stay in there for the moment, I guess. Let's see if I can get it to wiggle out. Nope, so we're going to leave it in there for the moment. And let's go ahead and loosen up these two thumb screws. Okay, with the thumb screws removed, the side plate comes off. Okay, now the thumb screws are not going to come all the way off, they're just going to loosen. And they're held captive. Okay, with those done, we'll set the side, or the rest of the reel over to the side. We could go ahead and take out the spool, but there's no need to at this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this cover. If you look, there are two screws, one here and one here. Then there's a third screw, this screw right here. There's never any reason to take that one out. That one holds a post on the inside that slides over here. There's no reason to take that one out, so leave it alone. We're only going to take out these two small ones. If for any reason you ever take that one out, and don't get it mixed up with those two because it's not the same screw. Okay, with that out, you should be able to put it in your hand to hold any loose parts that might fall off and slide the cover off. Okay, with the cover off, this piece here will now come off, and there's nothing left in here except for this switch that slides back and forth and this post that you could take off, but there's no reason to. Okay, set it over to the side. I'm going to rotate this around so you can see it better. Okay, there's no need for a screwdriver at this point. Alright, these are the rest of the parts that didn't want to slide out. Okay, you've got another washer. You've got a collar. Another shim. Alright, with all those out, now you're ready to go ahead and remove this gear assembly. Now when you pull it off, watch right here. This is your anti-reverse dog. Let me zoom you in a little bit. Okay, this is your anti-reverse dog. It fits on the anti-reverse gear underneath here. When you lift this up, it may very well come up with it. As a matter of fact, you can go ahead and lift it and it'll all come up together. Alright, now you've got one complete assembly there. Notice the configuration that the reverse dog is in. All right, if you flip that around the other way, it won't work properly. So remember that. I'm going to show you when we go to put it back in what happens if you put it in wrong. All right, set this assembly over to the side. That brings us down to, this is your secondary gear for the level wind. Goes on the bottom. All right, over here we have the pinion gear. It's got a keyway. That keyway is going to go towards the bottom. You've got these two springs. You've got your yoke assembly, and they call it the yoke because it looks like a yoke, like an oxen yoke. Now on this yoke, the side that goes over here on this side is going to have this notch cut out of it. The side that goes to the other side has a ramp cut into it. Okay, that goes on just like that. Okay, now with all that done, you clean it up. You can remove the button with the spring, but usually there's not enough dirt or anything in there to make it worthwhile. If you need to, there's a C-clip right there. You pop that C-clip off, and then this whole button will come off, and it comes up with the spring and everything. Notice the configuration of the spring if you do take that off. I've never had the need to take it off, but that's how it does come off. All right, let's go to putting it back together. First to go in is your yoke with your pinion gear. Let's go ahead and put the yoke in, then the pinion gear. Okay, yoke in, pinion gear slides into it. Notice that the keyway went down and the gear portion of the pinion gear goes up. All right, set that, and the two springs, put them back in. So that you have an assembly that looks like that at this point. We're going to set that over to the side. And we're going to take this assembly apart. And I'm going to zoom you back out a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and take this apart. On the bottom, you're going to have your shift dog or your anti-reverse dog. We're going to take it off and set it off to the side. Okay. You can go ahead and pull this gear assembly off. This has got all of your drag washers in it. And it should just press right off. This is your anti-reverse gear. And this is your collar for it. On the bottom side, you have this domed washer and this large drag washer. Then you have the gear. On the top side, you have another large metal washer that's keyed on in the center, and then you have another drag washer. Okay, what you would want to do is clean all these parts and then lubricate them with drag grease. If your drag washers are damaged, you're going to need to replace them. These are not, so we're going to keep them just as they are. And let's follow through the assembly procedure. First part that goes on is going to be the level wind secondary gear. That slides on the shaft right down here. Once that's on, this gear goes on, or sleeve goes on. Once the sleeve is on, next will come the anti-reverse gear. On that anti-reverse gear goes your anti-reverse dog, and it goes like this. If you turn it the other way, I'm going to show you what's going to happen. If you turn it the wrong way and slide it on and get it onto the post that it belongs on over here and get it to slide all the way down, then what's going to happen is what you see right there. It's locked. It can't turn. Alright, so make sure that you put that shift dog or anti-reverse dog on correctly. Slide it up, flip it over, slip it back on, put the anti-reverse dog on this post right here, slide it down. Make sure that it fits on here, and then rotate it so those two white plastic teeth get in there. Once that's on, now take a look. It will rotate like this, but it won't rotate the opposite. So your anti-reverse is up and running. All right. Next, let's go ahead and assemble your gear. Your gear has two sides. It has a large side and it has a small shouldered side. On the large side is going to be your large drag washer. Slip it in, then slip on the domed washer, flip it over. Now goes the small drag washer. See that it fits down inside that shoulder. Add a little drag grease to it so that it doesn't stick. Then goes the small washer on top. With that in place, it now slides down over the gear. And we're not on all the way because you'll know when you're all the way on because these two gears will be level with each other. So if it's not going all the way down, there's a keyway on that domed washer, and you've got to make sure that that keyway on the domed washer fits. Now that it fits snug or properly, you'll notice these two washers or two gears are level with each other. And notice it doesn't reverse backwards the other way. It will if you push it. That's your drag. Okay? But you'll see it will lock. And then the drag washers start to... And if you notice, you'll see right there, this washer stays still and the gear moves. That's how your drag works. And this knob will screw down on here and it will tighten it up, squishing this, and that's how your drag works. All right? Okay, that's all in there. And it is time to put the cover back on. First thing you got to put on is this part right here. And it's real easy to figure out how it goes because it's got a large post and a small post. If you look at the front, you'll see a large post hole and a small skinny post hole. Put them in there. Make sure that they're in their holes, perspective. All right. Then this cover goes on. Like this. Make sure everything is properly aligned, which currently it is not because it's not fitting down all the way. So something's not where it needs to be. Let's take a quick look. Pull that out where it needs to be. Okay. We have a spring that's not all the way down in the hole. That might be what was holding it. Okay. Make sure that those springs are all the way down in the yoke. All right. Let's try this again. Okay. Once it's down, it should snap evenly all the way around. There should not be any gap anywhere, and you shouldn't really have to use any force to get it to go down. All right, now we're going to put these screws back in, these two that we took out. Okay. With those removed, with those installed, you should be able to rotate. Anti-reverse should work. Okay, then you've got a switch on here for turning off the anti-reverse. In that position, your anti-reverse should stop working. Should be able to spin in both directions. Flip it back. Now you have anti-reverse again. And set it over to the side. Let's take a look at the rest of it now. Okay, here's our spool. I take the spool out. And this is your magnetic option over here that's supposed to control how fast or how far it will cast. Alright, let's go ahead. I've never had this side off, so let's experiment and take a look for ourselves. Okay, first thing you're going to notice is that we've got 5 screws that came out of this side. One is different. One that's a lot longer, and it goes in the very front. Alright, let's go ahead and take the side cover off. And a gear, oh, that's the knob. Okay, so the knob fell off. Well, there's really not much in here that's serviceable. You would need to get in here if you were going to take this level wind apart, as far as taking out off this clip to be able to pull that out. I don't really see a sense in doing that, but you could do it if you wanted to. And aside from that, everything else in here, you could take this apart by using snap ring pliers and taking this off. But the only reason I would do that is if this part was broken in here, and since parts aren't available for this anymore, unless you had a parts reel available, there's not any point in doing that. Okay, so let's put her back together. Came apart with the red line up, so we're going to put the red line back up to the top. It will fit either way, but that's the way it's made to be. So put the side cover back on. Let's put the screws back in. Okay. The only thing that I would do with this reel on this side is add a drop of oil. And I wouldn't even drip it down in there. I would put the drop of oil directly on the spool shaft before I insert it. Now a lot of people like to use grease on spool shafts. I don't. I find that it tends to slow them down a lot. So let's cut this extra off. Yes, my dad would have a fit over me biting that line in two. He was on me from the time I was a little kid to never ever bite the line in two. And I've done it my entire life. Sorry, Dad, it's the way I am. Alright, spool's in. Let's go ahead while we're at it and let's feed the line back up through the level wind hole. This is always the hard part on this reel, is this little bitty hole. Alright, fed through. We'll leave it all over to the side, out of the way. Now we're ready to put the side plate back on. And that fits on very nicely. Turn the thumb screws back in. Now the button pops back out now that it has the level wind feature back installed. Okay. That in place, we'll go ahead. First goes the spacer. Then goes this collar. Then goes this washer. Then goes this keyed washer. Next goes your star washer. It goes on in a counterclockwise position or direction. And you've got to get it on perfectly straight. If you put it on crooked, you'll tear up the threads. So make sure that you've got it on correctly. Okay, with that on, next comes your tensioner. Then goes on your handle. Like so. Now once the handle's on, goes the little bitty shim that goes at the top. After that goes the little C-clip. Like so. Then goes your nut. And of course, you're going to want to screw it on clockwise, but it doesn't go on that way, it goes on counterclockwise. Go ahead and tighten your drag down quite a bit, and let's tighten down the nut. Line it up so you've got a flat square going across, either a flat square or directly on the point, one or the other, so that you can put on this cap. I got it just a little bit off still. Okay. The cap on. Then goes your screw to hold that cap. Here's where I use a little trick. Put just a dab of grease on the tip of your screwdriver. We'll hold that screw in place. Tighten it down. Okay. Okay, we got a free spool. It's a little bit tight. We're going to loosen the nut on the side. We're going to loosen it a little on the side. So we've got a nice easy free spool. Okay. Tighten it down just a hair. Alright, wind it. Okay. We got a good drag. Let's tighten the drag down. That's where you can't use it at all. Now loosen it up a little. There's a good drag. Good. Then go ahead, if you're going to be putting it in storage instead of using it, go ahead and loosen the drag back up. By tightening it all the way until it won't go any further, you've pushed all the grease out of it. Now if you leave it that way, those washers for the drag washers are going to end up sticking to the metal portions. So go ahead and take those off, loosen it back up, or don't take it off, loosen it up. Now I've got it too loose. Oh, I did just loosen it up. Remember, when you do loosen it up, you won't be able to wind it if you loosen it too much. Alright, we got good drag. And there we have taken apart, cleaned and lubricated the Shimano Bantam Magnumlite. Yep, Magnumlite BSM 1551B. If you enjoyed this video and care to see any more like it, please subscribe. If you have any comments to make, please make them. If you have any negative comments, hey, that's okay too. I'm in for anything that anybody wants to discuss about any of these things I've done. Hey, if I've done something wrong, I'm okay with that, because I am not a professional by any means. I'm learning these as I go and putting them out there for others.